Tēnā koutou te whānau o Auckland Unitarian. Tēnā koutou nā manahiri. No mai, haere mai ki tēnei whare karakia a te atua. Tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. We welcome you into this space made sacred by Auckland Unitarians for 118 years. That is not a long time, considering that for 5,000 years or more than 15,000 generations, human beings have been invoking spiritual power. My predecessors and yours have gathered together to make sense of their lives and their place in the cosmos. And they have spoken aloud and invited what they conceived as sacred and powerful to be with them. They called upon the spirits of air and earth, fire and water. They called the bear and the deer. They asked for the raven to protect them. They pleaded for the heroes of old to slay the monsters of their fears. They sang songs they learned from their grandparents and moved in the appointed ways or in ways that were new but felt like the right thing to do. And they imputed power to these spirits and to the memories of those heroes. They called them gods, and they were invoked. Vishnu and Kali, Elohim, Odin, and 100 million others. Every group of people everywhere, they gathered to make sense of their lives and to make sense of their place in the cosmos, and they called these spirits to be present to them. And so do we. So do we. We gathered this morning to make sense of ourselves and this universe in which we live as best we are able. And we call ourselves to worship together, and we invoke the power and wonder of life itself, that to which all those spirits of animals and memories of heroes pointed the way. We invoke that power, which is, we know, always around, always with us, but which we sometimes forget about. We forget that we are part of the whole of creation. We forget that we are stardust. We forget that we are capable of miracles, first among them that we can love. We forget these things, so we invoke the power of existence so that we can remember, so that we can lift our eyes and open our ears to the true and beautiful. For 5,000 years or more, we have done this. In many tongues and many ways, we have done this. And so we continue that ancient tradition in our way and in our time. And so let us now worship together, remembering our worship service is our excuse for morning tea. It is a time of connection and reconnection. It is our sacrament of hospitality. Please join us. It won't be complete without you. My opening words are by Victoria Safford in a reflection called Walking Toward Morning. You know, we do it every day. Every morning we go out blinking into the glare of our freedom, into the wilderness of work and the world, making maps as we go, looking for some signs that we're on the right path. And on some good days, we walk right out of our oppressions, those things that press us down from the outside, or as often, from the inside. We shake off the shackles of fear, prejudice, timidity, closed-mindedness, selfishness, self-righteousness, and claim our freedom outright, terrifying as it is, our freedom to be human and humane. Every morning, every day, we leave our houses, not knowing if it will be for the last time. And we decide what we'll take with us, what we'll carry. How much integrity? How much truth telling? How much compassion in case we meet someone along the way may need some? How much arrogance? How much anger? How much humor? How much willingness to change or to be changed, to grow and to be grown? How much faith and hope? How much love and gratitude? You pack these with your lunch and medications, your date book, and your papers. Every day we gather what we think we'll need, pick up what we love, and all that we so far believe. Put on our history, shoulder our experience and memory, take inventory of our blessings, and we start to walk toward morning. With deep gratitude for all who have kept burning the flame that lights our path, we kindle our chalice. We remember thus in love the long pilgrimage of those living and dead who have, in faith and hope, guided our way. I'm not sure why, but I find that with age, I'm spending more time in my long-term memory vault. The trade-off is I can't remember why I went into the kitchen or where I left my keys. I think this is due in part because the memory vault is full to bursting, and almost anything my five senses encounter brings back a host of memories. For instance, I find color to be a highly effective trigger for memories. Institutional light green is one that brings back less than positive memories. It was the color of choice in schools and hospitals, at least in America. Because we moved a lot when I was a kid, I associate it with the first day of attending a new school, which I always found intimidating. Other colors evoke more positive memories. Ruby red and bright yellow remind me of one of my earliest movie experiences. I was 5 when my parents took me to see The Wizard of Oz. I found the black and white beginning with a nasty woman who took Toto away on her bicycle and the coming of a tornado a little frightening. But then the movie went from black and white to dazzling color. I suspect my eyes got big as saucers. I still remember being mesmerized by the yellow brick road and the sparkle of those ruby red slippers. I wouldn't have another such reaction until I saw my first color TV program at my aunt's house. She could afford to give her family a very expensive set as a Christmas present. I was 11, and the show was Bonanza. It evokes other memories. I can remember everyone who was there to see this technological wonder, even where they were sitting in the room. The only negative memory is my aunt serving us a special dessert called a snowball ice cream. Ice cream laced through with coconut. As a child, I detested coconut, and I'm still not fond of it. But I was brought up to be polite, so I choked down most of it until my mother rescued me with some excuse, sparing me from having to finish it. Take a moment and try to remember when you first noticed and were moved in some way by a color or colors. One colorful childhood thing for us who grew up in America that hasn't changed is the big 64-piece box of Crayola crayons. It comes in a tiered box with row after endless row of colorful choices my grandfather would send me every birthday. It was an adventure to turn each crayon sideways and read the name of some of the more exotic colors: puce, cinnamon, aqua, vermilion. Rachel tells me that Kiwi kids were deprived of such colorful richness. It's a shame you can't pick up a box this afternoon and see what memories might be released. Memories are important pieces of the puzzle of figuring out who we are and how we are to live. Memories can remind us of what we love, like crayons or clouds. And as we remember, we create and recreate ourselves anew. Even our vision of the future is anchored in the stories and images and perhaps colors that we remember. Marcel Proust wrote that memory comes as a rope let down from heaven to draw one out of the abyss of non-being. The problem is the rope can be frayed. When gathered with family, and it's not uncommon to reminisce. It can be disconcerting to discover our memory of shared events differs from those of our siblings, children, or parents. I've had the experience of having no memory at all of events they remember, even though they assure me I was there. Try as I might, I have not been able to dredge them up. Then there are memories that turn out to be false. Then the question becomes, whose memory has rewritten history? Turns out that memories can be suppressed by shame, embarrassment, and pain. If memories don't validate who we would like to think we are today, they become inconvenient. Best to leave them in the dusty back corner of our memory vault. The problem is they're still a part of us. Suppressing or denying or cleaning them up to be suitable for company only deprives us of becoming all we are capable of being. The rope drawing us up out of the non-being can be strengthened only by honoring all of our memories. Robert Frost once wrote a poem about the sale of his farm after his wife had died. He apparently wasn't pleased with it, as he did not include it in his collected works. It wasn't published until after his death. It tells of returning to the farm years later to honor his wife's wishes that her ashes be scattered by a creek that ran through it. When he went back to the farm, it had become a neglected, dilapidated eyesore, and the owners told him he was trespassing. It is the last lines of the poem I find poignant. It shall be no trespassing if I come again some spring, if the gray disguise of years, in the gray disguise of years, seeking the ache of memory here. Having lived all over the U.S., I have lived in many homes, from trailers to married student housing to apartments to houses. On journeys of self-discovery, I've sought the ache of memory by visiting some of those that hold strong memories for me. Some are gone altogether. Some have not aged well. Some, like my grandparents' home in San Francisco, are repositories of who I was from 6 weeks of age to when my grandmother died when I was in my early 40s. When I visit San Francisco, I go park across the street from the house. and let the tears flow. I've never sought to trespass by asking the family that lives there if I can come in. I want to remember it the way it was. Why seek out this ache of memory? Excuse me. I suppose to check to see how my interior memory matches present reality. I suppose to recollect myself, to learn again, and for the first time, who I am. T.S. Eliot's familiar words from Little Gidding capture what I mean. We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all of our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. And it's always the first time, because each time when we circle around and return, it is a different place. We are different. Our experience is different. Or again, perhaps we seek out ache of memory because memory is crucial to our humanity. For most species, memory is ground into the very cells of their bodies, into their DNA, and so too for us. But for us humans, there is greater flexibility with regard to memory, so that, as with so many aspects of our species, memory is something we must cultivate. It's not just given, but it's something we give ourselves to. And so it is that we take notes, take pictures, write journals, put up plaques and monuments, create cemeteries. Archaeologists, for example, are able to identify our species, Homo sapiens sapiens, by the fact that we are the species who create burial sites. We are those creatures who mark a place by which to remember those whom we have loved and lost. Part of the ache of memory is the ache of being cut off from something that was once precious to us. The poet Robinson Jeffers, for example, imagines himself or his ghost returning to a house that he built. Robinson Jeffers had built a house adjoining buildings and a tower out of sea rock that he had pulled up from the coast in Carmel, California. In a poem titled Ghost, found in his effects after his death, he had written, "There is a jaggle of masonry here on a small hill above the gray-mouthed Pacific. Cottages and a thick-walled tower, all made of rough sea rock and Portland cement. I imagine 50 years from now, a mist-grained figure moping about this place in mad moonlight, examining the mortar joints, pawing the parasite ivy. Does the place stand? How did it take that last earthquake? Then someone comes from the house door, taking a poodle for his bedtime walk. The dog snarls and retreats. The man stands rigid, saying, 'Who are you? What are you doing here?' 'Nothing to hurt you.' 'It,' the ghost answers, 'I'm just looking at the walls that I built. I see that you've played hell with the trees I planted. There has to be room for my people,' he answers. 'My God,' he says, 'that's still.'" There is an ache associated with returning to the places which we are connected. And there's an ache and a sorrow in contemplating the fact that we can never return. With regard to that sorrow, I respectfully submit that we must allow ourselves to enter it, to give ourselves to the ache of memory. I submit that to avoid the ache of memory is not healthy, that you will lose track of a part of yourself. And with regard to loved ones who have passed, If you attempt to avoid the ache of memory with regard to them, you will lose parts of them as well. For after a loved one dies, you cannot remember that loved one without also remembering that that loved one is no longer physically with you. So now, each time, at least in some degree, you have to go through the gate of death to meet your departed loved one on the other side. So there's some advice here, namely, not to try to avoid the ache of memory or the sorrow of the world. Allow yourself to enter the sorrow of the world and to experience the ache of memory. Seek out, as Robert Frost suggests, those places that may hold ache of memory for you. For indeed, our memories are held in things and places, encoded in our brains. Yes, but for the mind to retrieve those memories, it often requires a physical prod or a physical contact, or if that is not possible, contemplating the color, smell, taste, sound, or feeling associated with it, so that going to the place opens and unlocks the vault of memory. So, amen. And blessed be. For our meditation, our Jewish sisters and brothers are in the midst of celebrating the days of awe from Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, to Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. I offer this meditation by Ben Sewell on their holiest days of the year. We feel the season turning, the early sunset glancing through the red-tinged leaves, the newspaper arriving in the cool of the morning air, the flock of migrating swallows, a feeling of being on the edge of something new. These are the days of awe, a time to welcome a new year and a time to make the old year right before we lay it in its place on the shelf of our memories. We bless the wine and drink. We bless the braided bread and eat. We dip apple in honey and savor its sweetness. May the sound of the shofar carry us across the threshold where lie the possibilities we imagine for ourselves and our children. my closing words. May the faith we nourish here and the memories we gather here give us hope for the future. May the love that we share and the companionship we feel strengthen us and bring joy to our hearts. And may the blessings of our beloved community rest upon us this day and forevermore.